The last truck rumbled down the gravel driveway, Grandma's antique oak table strapped to its flatbed like war spoils. My uncle's taillights disappeared around the bend and the house fell silent except for the creak of settling floorboards. I stood alone in the empty living room, the only things left in my name a battered brown suitcase and a one-way United Airlines ticket to San Francisco dated for tomorrow morning. I had expected nothing. I was the gay grandson, the one who had ruined Thanksgiving 3 years ago when I finally said the word out loud at the dinner table. After that, invitations dried up. Phone calls became texts that went unanswered. So when the lawyer pulled me aside after the burial and handed me the suitcase with a quiet, "She left this specifically for you, Ethan," I almost laughed. A suitcase. While everyone else fought over the china and the silver, I carried it to the kitchen, the only room still lit by the late afternoon sun. The latch clicked open with a soft snap. Inside, a sealed envelope addressed in Grandma's shaky handwriting, a stack of old letters tied with faded blue ribbon, a small leather journal, and a cashier's check for $42,000 made out to me. My knees buckled. I sat on the linoleum and tore the envelope open. "Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone and the vultures have already picked the house clean." I knew they would. I also knew you would stand there watching them do it, because that's who you are. Quiet, kind, always carrying other people's shame so they don't have to. I've known you were gay since you were 15 and I caught you kissing Tommy Hargrove behind the barn. I never told a soul. Not because I was ashamed of you, because I was ashamed of them. Go to San Francisco. The ticket is non-refundable. The money is enough to start over. The journal belonged to my brother, your great-uncle Daniel. He died in 1978 because this world refused to let him live. Read it on the plane. Then decide what kind of life you're willing to fight for. I love you more than every piece of furniture they took. Grandma. I read it 3 times. My throat closed. Outside, the cicadas screamed like they were mocking me. I closed the suitcase, walked upstairs to the room that used to be mine, and lay down on the bare mattress. Sleep never came. To 5 a.m. I called an Uber to the airport. The plane lifted off at 7:12. I opened the journal. Daniel's first entry was dated June 12, 1969, Stonewall Summer. Page after page of careful, terrified handwriting describing secret nights in Chicago bars, the fear of being caught, the boy he loved named Michael who disappeared after a raid. I read until my eyes burned. When the flight attendant asked if I needed anything, I could only shake my head. San Francisco greeted me with fog and a wind that smelled like salt and possibility. I took the BART into the city, suitcase bumping against my leg like a heartbeat. I had no plan, no hotel, nothing except Grandma's voice in my head saying decide. I found a cheap hostel in the Tenderloin, dropped my bag, and walked. Castro Street hit me like a wave. Rainbow flags, men holding hands in broad daylight, laughter spilling out of cafes. I stood on the corner of 18th and Castro and felt something crack open inside my chest. For the first time in years, I wasn't the only one. That night I sat on a bench in Harvey Milk Plaza and read the last page of Daniel's journal. He had written, "If I ever have a nephew, I hope he lives loud enough for both of us." I closed the book, looked up at the sky turning pink, and whispered, "I'll try, Uncle Daniel. I'll try." I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating across the hostel nightstand. "Mom." I let it ring out. Then a text. "Where are you? Your aunts are worried." I typed back, "San Francisco. Grandma's ticket." Silence for 20 minutes. Then, "Come home. This is ridiculous. You're throwing your life away." I powered the phone off and went downstairs. The hostel common room smelled like burnt toast and weed. A guy my age was making coffee in a French press. Tall, dark hair, wire-rimmed glasses, faded band tee. He glanced up, smiled like he already knew me. "First time in the city?" "Yeah. Landed yesterday. I'm Ryan. Local. Sort of. Just moved back after a year in LA. Ethan. From Illinois. Long story." He poured me a mug without asking. We sat at the rickety table and talked until the coffee went cold. He told me he was a graphic designer, had come out at 19, lost his family's church, gained a chosen family in the Castro. I told him about Grandma, the suitcase, the journal. He listened without pity, just nodded like every word made perfect sense. That afternoon he took me to the LGBT History Museum. We stood in front of the panel with Daniel's name on the AIDS quilt. Ryan's hand brushed mine. Neither of us pulled away. By the third day I had a job interview at a coffee shop on Market Street and a room in a shared apartment 2 blocks from the hostel. Ryan helped me move my suitcase. When the last box was inside, he leaned against the doorframe and said, "You don't have to do this alone, you know?" I kissed him first. It was clumsy, desperate, perfect. His hands cupped my face like I was something precious. When we broke apart, he whispered, "Welcome home, Ethan." For 2 weeks life felt like a dream I was afraid to wake from. Mornings at the cafe pulling espresso shots. Afternoons exploring the city with Ryan. Nights tangled in his sheets talking until sunrise. He showed me how to order at the taqueria on 24th, how to ride the cable cars without looking like a tourist, how to say "I love you" without the word feeling like a weapon. Then the first crack appeared. My sister called. "Dad's in the hospital. Heart issues. He's asking for you." I booked a red-eye that night. Ryan drove me to the airport, kissed me at security, said, "Come back to me." I promised I would. Illinois in November felt like stepping into a freezer. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and old grief. Dad looked small in the bed. When I walked in, he turned his head away. "You shouldn't have come," he muttered. Mom hugged me like she was drowning. My aunts hovered in the hallway, whispering about the lifestyle that had clearly driven me crazy. I stayed 3 days, long enough to sign discharge papers, long enough for Dad to say, "If you come back for good and stop this nonsense, we'll forget the last year." I left without answering. On the flight home, I reread Grandma's letter until the words blurred. Ryan met me at SFO with flowers and a sign that read "Welcome back, Illinois boy." I cried in his arms right there in baggage claim. That night I told him everything. Dad's ultimatum, the money Grandma left, the fear that I was choosing between 2 families. He held me and said, "You're not choosing between them. You're choosing you." For the first time. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. The cafe promoted me to shift supervisor. Ryan got a big freelance contract. We celebrated with cheap champagne on the rooftop of our building, city lights glittering below like scattered diamonds. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver band etched with tiny coordinates, 37.7609 degrees north, 122.4365 degrees west. The exact spot where we first kissed in Harvey Milk Plaza. "I'm not asking for forever yet," he said. "Just that you stay. That we build something real here." I slid the ring on. Fit perfectly. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future that wasn't borrowed or hidden. Then the letter arrived. Certified mail from an Illinois attorney. My father was suing to contest Grandma's will. Claimed she was not of sound mind when she left me the money. The hearing was set for February. I had 30 days to respond. Ryan found me on the fire escape. Letter crumpled in my fist. "We'll fight it," he said. "Together." But the cracks widened. My sister started texting daily guilt trips. My aunts posted passive-aggressive Facebook prayers for the lost sheep. Dad's health declined again. Stress, they said. My stress. The kind you cause when you refuse to be normal. I started waking at 3 a.m. with my heart racing. Ryan would pull me close, but the shame was louder than his heartbeat. One night I whispered, "What if they're right? What if I'm destroying everyone?" He sat up, switched on the lamp. "Your family is destroying themselves, Ethan. Grandma gave you permission to live. Don't you dare throw that away because they can't handle it." I wanted his certainty. I envied it. The hearing date loomed. Ryan offered to fly back with me. I said no. I needed to face them alone. He drove me to the airport again, same terminal, same kiss at security. This time his eyes were worried. "Call me every night," he said. I promised. Illinois was colder than before. The courthouse smelled of floor wax and defeat. My father wouldn't look at me. My lawyer, court-appointed, cheap, said the case was weak but emotional. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened to my aunts testify that Grandma had been confused after her stroke. Then I took the stand. I read Grandma's letter out loud. The whole room went still. When I finished, the judge asked, "Mr. Hayes, do you believe your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing?" "Yes, Your Honor. She knew exactly who I was. And she loved me anyway." The ruling came 2 weeks later. The money was mine. The family could keep the furniture. I walked out of the courthouse into a February sleet and called Ryan. "I'm coming home," I said. He was crying on the other end. "I'll be at the gate." The reunion at SFO was everything I dreamed. Ryan lifted me off the ground, spun me once, kissed me right there in front of everyone. We took a lift home, windows down, city lights streaking past. That night we didn't sleep. We talked about the future, maybe a little house in No Valley, maybe adopting a dog, maybe me going back to school for graphic design so we could work together. For 3 perfect weeks, life was quiet. Then my phone rang at 2 a.m. unknown number. I answered anyway. "Ethan? It's your father." His voice was hoarse, weak. "I had another heart attack. They don't think I'll make it through the night. I need to see you. Please." Ryan was already awake, hand on my back. "Go," he said. "I'll book the ticket." I flew out at dawn. Dad was in ICU, tubes everywhere. Mom sat beside him, eyes red. When I walked in, he opened his eyes and whispered, "I was wrong." 3 words. That was all. Then he closed them again. He died 2 hours later. The funeral was small. My aunts didn't speak to me. My sister hugged me once, stiffly, then walked away. I stayed long enough to scatter ashes at the lake where Grandma used to take us fishing. Then I flew back to California with a cardboard box of Dad's old watches and a letter he'd written but never sent. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I was afraid of what people would say, of losing you the way I lost my own brother when he came out in 1974. I chose silence then. I chose it again with you. Your grandmother was braver than all of us. If you're reading this, I didn't make it. Tell Ryan I'm glad you found him. Love, Dad." I read it on the plane, tears falling on the page. When we landed, Ryan was waiting. I handed him the letter without a word. He read it, folded it carefully, and pulled me into his arms right there on the sidewalk. We buried the last of the shame that night. Literally. We burned the old family photos in a fire pit on the roof, watched the flames eat the images of Thanksgivings I was never invited to. Then we danced to nothing, just the city humming below us. Spring came early. Cherry blossoms lined Dolores Street like pink snow. Ryan and I moved into a tiny cottage with a lemon tree in the backyard. I started classes at City College. He proposed properly on the Golden Gate Bridge at sunset, ring on a chain around my neck until I said yes. The wedding was small, 20 people, mostly chosen family. No blood relatives came, but Grandma's lawyer sent a card. Daniel's quilt panel hung behind the altar. When the officiant asked if anyone had objections, the wind off the bay answered for us. Married life was ordinary in the best way. Grocery runs, laundry, arguing over who left the dishes. Some nights the old fear still crept in. What if they're right? What if I'm selfish? But Ryan would kiss my temple and say, "You're allowed to be happy, Ethan. That's not a sin." Then the call came in October. "My sister. Mom's sick. Cancer. Stage 4. She's asking for you. And for Ryan." We flew out the next day. Mom was in hospice, skin like paper. She took one look at Ryan and smiled for the first time in years. "You make him light up," she whispered. "That's all I ever wanted." She died 3 days later. This time the funeral was different. My sister stood beside me. My aunts hugged Ryan. Someone even said, "Grandma would be proud." We flew home carrying Mom's favorite teacup and a new understanding that forgiveness doesn't always come with grand speeches. Sometimes it comes in a quiet hospital room and a simple, "I see you now." 2 years later, I stood on the same rooftop where Ryan first gave me the ring. The city glittered below, unchanged. I had finished school. We had the dog, a rescue mutt named Daniel. The lemon tree had grown tall enough to shade the patio table where we ate dinner most nights. Ryan stepped behind me, arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Grandma, Dad, Mom, all the people who had to die before the rest of us could live." He rested his chin on my shoulder. "You think they're watching?" "I think Grandma is laughing her ass off that her gay grandson finally got the happy ending she always wanted for Daniel." He turned me around, kissed me slow and deep. When we pulled apart, he said, "You ready for the next chapter?" I looked at the ring on my finger, felt the weight of the life we'd built, and nodded. "We're expecting our first child through surrogacy in 6 months. A little girl we're naming Eleanor after Grandma. The nursery walls are already painted soft yellow. Daniel the dog sleeps in the corner, dreaming of walks in the park. Some nights I still wake up reaching for the suitcase that started everything. It sits on the top shelf of our closet now, empty except for Grandma's letter and Uncle Daniel's journal. I take them down sometimes and read them to our unborn daughter through my wife's belly. Last week my sister called to say she's coming for the baby shower. She wants to bring her new girlfriend. Progress, slow and stubborn, but real. I don't know if Grandma knew exactly how it would all turn out, but she knew the only way forward was truth, and she trusted me to find it. So here's the question I ask myself every single day, and maybe you should ask yourself too. Was Grandma right to force me to choose between the family that raised me and the life I was born to live? Even if it cost me everything I thought I knew? True or false?